I struggled quite a bit mentally after that because I kind of felt like I'd put in a lot of the hard yards. Mobile coffee's not easy. Everyone thinks it's an easy entry to coffee, but it's not. You're up at daft o'clock, you're putting things together, everything's breaking. He always talks about the 1% in coffee shops, which I think are super important. They're these tiny, tiny little things that customers won't realize, but will make the experience so much better. And I think they're the most important things in coffee shops, is nailing the 1%, because they're the things that are going to make the difference in the end.
Today's guest went to New Zealand, and after one sip, it changed everything. He came back with a long life crush on coffee, 2 uni dropouts, a DIY van, and a pandemic pivot. And suddenly the queue ran down the street. It's now van, shops, and a fresh roastery training facility. Let's hear how it started, where it nearly fell over, and yes, the day he forgot the grinder, and the mission to put the Northeast on the speciality coffee map. Welcome to the podcast, Toby.
Thank you. Thank you for the intro.
Let's rewind right back to the beginning. Give us those early chapters. So take us back to New Zealand in the calf that sort of started your passion for coffee.
Yeah. I went to New Zealand when I was 20. I'm 33 now. So 13 years ago. I actually went out there. I was a keen rugby player when I was younger, and I went out there to play a rugby season, and it was funny. I was in the airport, in Newcastle Airport, before I left, and I was with my mum and dad, and so I was situated up in Nelson, in the top of the South Island, which is the club that has kind of brought me over to go and play. And before I went there, I went to Queenstown because I had a couple of friends who were living there, which is in the bottom of the South Island. It's like an awesome place, like young person's town, loads of mountain biking and things to do. And one of my good friends who was there, he was out there doing mountain biking, and I used to do like a little bit of that. And the last thing my dad said to me was, whatever you do, don't go out on a mountain bike with Tommy and fall off and break your wrist. So first day I get there, go on a mountain bike with Tommy and fall off and broke the scaphoid in my wrist. So when I went up to Nelson to play my rugby season, I couldn't play for the first few months, and they had put me up in accommodation and stuff, and I kind of just spent the first couple of months just kind of schmoozing around, and found a coffee shop there. I can't remember what it was called. I didn't really drink coffee at the time, and I remember going in, and the barista, I ordered a coffee. I think I ordered a flat white. It's kind of like the birthplace of flat white. And I remember him asking me, do you want the Brazilian coffee or the Ethiopian coffee? And I said, oh, I don't know, just give me anything. And I kind of remember drinking it and thinking, it was kind of that eureka moment that I think a lot of people have in specialty coffee, where you drink it and it kind of tastes like coffee, but it had all these other really nice sweet flavors to it as well. And I think there was just something within that I really kind of I just kind of fell in love, I guess, with the whole really coffee cafe culture and that kind of thing. And I kind of, I think that was kind of where it started for me.
Cool. And if somebody's listening who only is a instant coffee fan, how different is it having a specialty coffee without sort of getting too lost in the jargon of it?
I think when I was younger and I guess started drinking coffee, I just associated it with this kind of bitter drink that you just drink to feel awake. And I didn't really know it had more to it. And I think when you have your first one, it's just all these different flavors that you probably don't think you'd get in coffee. And you don't have that bitterness or that anything. It's just really, really sweet and nice. So I'd say if you are that person, go and find your local specialty coffee shop and order a latte or a flat white, and it might change your mind as well.
It changed your mind. And after your rugby season, you came back to the UK and you went to uni a couple of times?
Yeah, I think I was, I grew up in a family. My dad was a doctor. My mum was a nurse. They kind of went down the classic route of school and university, and I think that's kind of all they knew. My brothers were both very academic as well. They did the same. They went to uni, very academic and very successful. And I think when I was younger, going to school and growing up, and that was, I think, all that you were kind of told that, yeah, that's what you had to do to be successful. So I think that was what I thought I had to do. And I think that's what my dad thought I had to do. So he kind of pushed me to it. And so I went and I tried it. And I think I always knew that I was never academic and it just wasn't for me. And I think I knew it quite quickly that I wanted to do something for myself. But yeah, I did uni. I did 2 courses at uni and dropped out both times. Dad wasn't very happy about it, as you can imagine. And then I kind of still, when I found that thing for coffee, I just knew there was something there, and I thought, kind of knew coffee is a good, I know it's a good, I had no idea about business at the time. And I think I knew this is a good business, is something that I'm really passionate about. So I'm going to give it a crack. And I started working in coffee shops in Newcastle. And that's kind of where it all started for me.
Wow, that big step off. And then if we fast forward to 2014 and building that
Yeah.
mobile van coffee shop, landing that pretty quayside market spot. What are those early days like for you, and the hustle and the grind, obviously learning business and everything, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it was tough. When I kind of pieced together all the cash I had, and luckily some family members helped me out a bit, and I basically bought a mobile coffee setup. So I bought a machine and like a gazebo and a generator, and just really scrapped it together. And there's a market in Newcastle down on the quayside, which happens every Sunday. And I just kind of turned up one Sunday morning and asked for a spot, and got on. And I think the first day I maybe sold like 50 coffees, and just remember just being absolutely buzzing. And yeah, it was awesome. So I kind of did that on the side of, I was working full time in coffee shops, and then doing that once a week. And it was very much just sort of like a hobby for a while. And that's kind of where it was for a few years. And then within that time, I kind of upgraded the rickety market stall to a coffee van, started doing more events and things like that. But again, it was always just a bit of a hobby for me. It wasn't a hobby, it was just kind of, I guess, something on the side to working. And then it was the summer, before 2020, I'd sort of spent quite a lot of time getting some events for summer 2020. I had a really good schedule lined up, and I was kind of at the point where I was like, I can probably do this full time now. And then the old pandemic came along, and that kind of put a real spanner in the works. And I remember I struggled quite a bit mentally after that, because I kind of felt like I'd put in a lot of the hard yards. Like, mobile coffee's not easy. Everyone thinks it's an easy entry to coffee, but it's not. You're up at daft o'clock, you're putting things together, everything's breaking. So yeah, that had all been cancelled, and I kind of didn't really do anything for a couple of months. And then I remember seeing that there was some coffee shops in the area who were opening up as takeaway. And I just remember thinking, I've got this van, there's got to be something I can do here. It was all, I was just, when I look back, it was crazy, just the luck that I had. But maybe that was the result of maybe all the hard work. I don't know. It was something. So I managed to get a pitch just outside of the city centre, right on this walkway over this really nice grassy moor into the city centre. And I remember just thinking, and I got in touch with the council and said, can I open my coffee van here? And they were really supportive, and they said yes. And I kind of just went down with the idea of, well, I'll just tick over hopefully until this pandemic finishes. And it kind of just blew up for 2 years. And it was, really awesome. We had kind of queues down the street every day, people waiting in, like, I remember opening the hatch one morning. It was like a January, just after New Year. It was January. It was cold. It was wet. It was raining. And opening the hatch at like 8 a.m. and having a queue of like 40 people down the street. It was crazy. So that really catapulted the business into life. And so, yeah, it was a bit of a mad time, but it was fun. It was really fun.
And was that the moment that you thought, like, obviously building up to get pitches, to, like you say, be a mobile spot, like you say, people think it's going to be easy, but you've got to, like you say, get up early in the morning, travel somewhere for X number of minutes or hours, pitch up, do the stuff, set up, go along again. And then you have all of that year planned in ahead of you. Obviously, that moment when you opened in January with the 40 people down the street, was that the moment you thought, right, my momentum shifted, and I'm now going to go full send into coffee mode, and yourself?
Yeah, definitely. I think what I was doing in the past, where I was going and doing these events and stuff, a lot of the stuff I was doing was actually outside in Newcastle. I was trying to target like music festivals and stuff. I had this like weird belief where I just thought, it's not going to work in Newcastle, whatever I'm doing. Don't really feel like I had a name or a brand for it. So I kind of was like, I was almost like a bit scared to just go for it in Newcastle, I think. And when that happened, I think it just gave me the confidence and the belief that actually, that this is something that people here like, and people know about us now. And it was a real shift as to like, actually, we've kind of got something here. I'm going to try and build from this in Newcastle, and that's kind of what we did and what we've been doing since then. So that's kind of where it's been, yeah.
And did it feel risky at that point when you sort of pivoted? Or did you think, actually, we've got the momentum, I've now got the inner belief to go with it and grow, and there's going to be the support from the locals?
Yeah, definitely. It didn't feel risky anymore. I think those 2 years, we were obviously like super busy. We had I guess the cash was coming in, so we were confident in that sense that we could then start to reinvest it. And yeah, I think it was just I just remember just having that belief that we've got something here, that people like the brand, people like the coffee. We can do it here. We can keep going.
And that must be quite a proud moment to actually feel after, say, the cold mornings, the wet starts, the things breaking, leaving things behind, to actually think years of grind is coming together. What do you reckon some of the costs, not necessarily financially, would have been getting to that point for you?
I remember we were turning up in the earlier days, and where we were, that from essentially where the van was parked to the streets, there was a bit of grass. And obviously when the winter came, that got very wet and muddy and churned up, and we were like laying out bits of plastic and cardboard at like 6 a.m. and in the rain, so people could have like, I mean, now I think now it's like a health and safety nightmare. We probably shouldn't have been doing it. But it was all that stuff that we were doing, which I think at the time I never thought, oh, I just kind of did it. We kind of loved it. It was very hard. And then, I think now I look back and do feel very proud that it was all really started from scratch, from nothing really, as to where it got to, and I guess to where it is now.
And having that gut feeling. And then can we talk about that 2.5 hour drive that you had to an event with that nagging feeling that you might have forgotten something?
Yeah, that was in the days before COVID, when I started doing more events, there was an event we did about 2.5 hours away, and I drove down. And this is like classic, I guess, early days of any business owner starting something, which at the time you think is a complete disaster. But yeah, I drove to the event, got there, and I thought, unpacked the van. I thought, I've left my coffee grinder here. So I had to get back in the van, drive back to Newcastle, get the grinder, got back, ended up serving like 3 hours later than we were meant to start. And I remember just being like so stressed at the time and thinking, this is a disaster. And I look back on it now and I can laugh at it a bit, because it was, I think all these things that happen at the time, you think it's the worst thing in the world, and then you look back and you think, well, it's all just kind of part of the journey and the learning curve, really. You've kind of, a big believer that you've got to go through these like things to kind of get out the other side. And probably did that a lot in the earlier days without realizing that it was just kind of part of the journey. And now I can look back at it and think, it was all part of it, and we can have a good laugh about it now.
Always keep a spare one in the glove box if you have to go to an event?
We keep several spare ones now. Yeah, we keep several spare of everything, because generally things are forgotten or something breaks, or that's just the nature of it, really. Yeah,
brilliant. So again, that's nice to have a learning lesson quite early on, rather than you're at your peak event, big event, and realizing you've actually left stuff behind. So yeah, it's quite nice.
Yeah, definitely.
For listeners that are obviously tuning in, listening to this now, if we met at a party, how would you describe speciality coffee to somebody that knows nothing about coffee, without losing me in the jargon?
It's I compare it to wine in a sense. It's one of these things where I can go and have a glass of wine and I'll think, oh, it's nice, or I'm just having like a nice drink or something, and not really thinking about any of these other, I guess, flavors or textures that are going on. I think coffee is the same. There's different levels of quality. So you got the commodity side to it, which is the real, like the Robusta, the instant stuff. And then you've got the other end of the spectrum, the Arabica side to it, which is coffee that has been, I guess, at origins been taken care of a lot more. It's been grown at higher altitude. There's been a lot more that's gone into it. What you get from that is you just get like a lot more flavor from it. You get a lot more there's a lot more care being taken into it from start to finish, as opposed to the other end of the spectrum where there's been less care, and the end result is you're not getting much more from it. So in a sense of what specialty coffee is, it's really just a level of quality, which from that you're really just going to get better flavors and all that kind of stuff, really.
Which then will probably be a big difference from the high street brands to an independent, because there's the individuality. People are coming in, they like it this way, they prefer
Yeah.
this origin brand to this origin, and this is where we can mix it in with and marry it up with the different milks, I'd imagine, as well.
Yeah, definitely. And it's, I guess, quite similar to wine in the sense that you have, it's been grown or processed in a different way. And you might say to someone, well, this coffee from Brazil, if you like drinking a flat white, I would say that this coffee is going to taste a lot better with milk. Or if you say, hey, if you want to, drink something without milk and you want to get all this flavor, I'd maybe recommend this coffee from Africa, because in Africa there's more phosphates in the ground, so you get a lot more like fruity flavors and stuff. So you can kind of use it as a tool to guide customers who either might know what they want or they might not know what they want, and you can always try and help them out and bring them on the journey. But then you get, 90% of your customers just want something that's quick and tastes good. So you've got to be able to like cater for everyone, really. I compare it a bit to steak as well, because steak, I think if you go to a really nice steak restaurant and you say, I'd like my steak well done, the chef might be like, well, that's not how we do it here. But I think it's really important to remember your customers are the people that keep your business alive, and some people like things in a certain way. So if someone comes to us and says, oh, I like just something a bit more bitter and bodied, we can say, oh, well, you can have this one. Someone likes it a bit more fruity and delicate, which might compare to like someone who likes a rare or a blue steak. You can say we can have like, I never think I think that's probably one of the biggest, I don't know if it's like an issue, but the biggest sort of barrier in specialty coffee at the minute is, I think there's a lot of people in places who will kind of say, well, this is how you have to have it. And I've never gone down that route. I like being more open-minded about it and understanding what people actually want, and then, saying this is what I'd recommend. So that's kind of how we've always tried to be really, really inclusive of what we do.
Dare I
I think it's
say,
important.
then a customer-led experience, because you might have somebody going, I'm used to a generic high street coffee, which perhaps is probably burnt and quite bitter, but you don't know it's burnt and bitter because that's the only thing you've got to compare it with. When you come in with yourselves, there's a passion there, there's an identity, and you almost sort of take somebody on a journey rather than what you've just described is other coffee shops speaking in absolutes. It is absolutely got to be this way for the best coffee, but your taste buds are going to be different to mine. Therefore, we're two different, I suppose, tastes in coffee.
Yeah, I think it's always a bit of a tricky one, because in a commercial sense, you have to give your customers what they want, and because if you do something where you're only going to give customers what you want, then you're probably going to maybe scare people off a bit. But you also have to stay true to your values in a sense as well. So I think you've got to find this middle ground in specialty coffee where you're providing like an easy but a good but a new experience for people, but you're not putting people down an alley where you say this is the only way of doing it. Where you're saying to people, well, you can't have sugar, you can't have this. You've always got to find a middle ground with your market, I think, which is quite a fine balance of, doing what you want to do as a brand and what your values are and what you believe in. But then you've got to remember, you've got to pay the rent, you've got to pay the bills, you've got to pay the staff. So you've got to find something that works for both, really.
And you've gone from your vans now into coffee shops. When you started to make that leap, did you have sort of a site spotting guide, something that you're like, right, I need these 3 criteria, they're my non-negotiables to make a space work? Or has it sort of developed as you open more shops?
I think with us, I always think there's 2 different types of coffee shop. You can either go really small or really big. I think, again, from a commercial perspective, whatever you do, you've got to be able to do volume. You've got to be able to do a high number of sales, I think, to make your business sustainable financially. We've always gone down the route of we want to do a high volume of coffee. And I think in the the earlier days, I was probably a bit scared of really, really high rents, which I still am, because the commercial rental market in the UK is really tough. You have high rents and high business rates. So we've always looked for sites where we can stay small and try and do like a large number of volume of takeaway coffee, which is, if you look at all our sites in Newcastle, that's kind of the model there. So our first site is actually in the city centre, but it's within this indoor market called the Granger Market. It's like a really, really bustling. I guess it's similar to your borough markets and stuff in Newcastle. And we rented almost like a kiosk style shop there. And our two other shops that we've opened, they do have seating, but they are the focus is small, quick, high volume takeaway, and that's what we've always gone for. It's not to say that I wouldn't open a larger site where we'd do more tables and more food. It's just I see it as a much higher barrier to entry in terms of cost and planning and your model and stuff. So that's what we've done so far. Whether we would stick to that moving forward or whether we might look to do something down the other route, it really just depends what pops up and what we think we can do, really.
Yeah. And what's one of the biggest myths that people have about opening up a coffee shop, whether it would sort of silently drain cash without them realising it?
I mean, the biggest myth is that they're going to make you loads of money, because they just don't. They're very expensive businesses to run. I think, especially at the minute in the UK, I believe that the UK at the minute it's not very good for business owners and entrepreneurs. Everything is just really expensive to do at the minute. And I think the biggest myth is, and I used to think like this, you'd go into a coffee shop on a Saturday morning and you'd be super busy, loads of money going through the till. And people say to me all the time, "Oh, you must be making a fortune here." And it's just not the case, because everything's from wages to rent to everything that we buy is super expensive. And the big one is the turnover taxes, the VAT and the new PAYE and all that stuff that's come in, they're really hard to make money in. So, and I remember actually in my earlier days, my biggest worry was always like, we're going to open, are we going to be busy? We're going to get customers in. And that's really now shifted to, that's not really a concern anymore. We know that we're busy, but the challenge now is to run your business well enough and stay disciplined enough to operate your business sustainably, that you can still run it at a realistic operating profit. And I think no matter how busy you are at the minute, you're only really going to make a certain amount at the other end. So it's about being experienced. And I always use the word discipline now, because I think there's a difference between being disciplined and being stingy. We've had to implement a lot of new things in our business very recently that I've just looked at and just thought, we can't afford to do this anymore. So we have to remain disciplined to keep our businesses sustainable. So yeah, the biggest myth is that they make loads of money. They do make money. You can make money in them, but you have to know what you're doing, and you have to be really disciplined, I think, is the key.
A cold coffee then, essentially.
Do you know what? Yeah, the cold coffee. Do you mean the iced coffee when you say that? Yeah. That's actually a big one. That's really catapulted the last few years. And there's this really funny thing with the VAT that you pay in hospitality businesses. There's all these kind of little nooks and loopholes with it. But if you don't heat something, so for example, an iced coffee, if you sell that to take away, the higher powers don't seem to think that there's a value added to that, so you don't pay the VAT on that. But if you put it in a cup and sit in, then you do, and anything that's hot. So there's all these little nuances especially with sales taxes, that I think you've got to really understand and figure out how you can build a coffee shop model to keep that as sustainable as you can.
And within your coffee shops, and you've said you've got a couple, do you have any regular customers that people might know that come in to see you on a regular basis, that choose your speciality coffee over other?
Yes, we do actually. The Newcastle United head coach, Eddie Howe, he comes for coffee most mornings at our coffee van. He doesn't actually get out to get the coffee. The team of coaches come, and there's one of them who comes. His name's Simon. I can't remember his second name. He's one of the head coaches. He's a really, really nice bloke. And he comes pretty much most mornings for coffee. And I think it was about a year ago, because he either buys one for himself or he buys six. So I said to him, I said, "Who are the rest of these coffees for?" And he says, "Oh, it's Eddie and the team." So yeah, we make Eddie's oat milk cappuccino. I think he orders an oat milk cappuccino or an oat latte most mornings. So yeah, that's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
And when he's ordering one, he hasn't done very well, and then he's been voted man of the match when he buys six.
Yeah. Or he just gets the short straw most mornings to get out
Yeah.
and buy the coffees for everyone.
Coffee.
Yeah.
And then what was the moment that you went from having coffee shops and thought, I'm going to open my own roastery? Because that, dare I say, is a different ball game and training facility. How did you sort of navigate that sort of path into the beginnings of that?
Yeah, massively. I think so from my early days in coffee, and when I wanted to set up the business, I think I always just had this vision for I wanted to create and build not just a coffee shop, but a specialty coffee company that I've lived in the Northeast my whole life. I'm actually from Northumberland, about 30 minutes up the road, but I've lived in Newcastle since I got back from New Zealand now. And I'm really proud of where I'm from, the Northeast. I'm a proud. I don't sound like a Geordie, but I always say I'm a proud Geordie. I'm a proud Northeasterner, and I think that we in this region, I always say we're 10 years behind London or wherever who are sort of pioneering specialty coffee. And I didn't think there was a specialty coffee company up here that when you I always think if you think of Cornwall, you think of Origin Coffee. And if you think of Wales, you think of Hardlines Coffee. But I always said to myself, when you think of Newcastle, who do you think of? I don't think there was anyone here really doing it. There's a few great smaller roasteries around here, which are all really good. But I wanted to create something that put Newcastle on the map really for specialty coffee. So when people in the coffee community in the UK and further afield think of Newcastle, they think of North Shore. So, and I always knew that the only way of really doing that was not just to have a couple of coffee shops, but we wanted to roast our own coffee and have our own brand and our own identity. So that's been in my mind ever since I started. And I think I entered coffee. I think you can either enter one or two ways. You can enter as a barista and work in coffee shops, which is what I did. And that's what I always knew. And that's what I was always good at. Or you can enter as a coffee roaster and you can kind of start on that route. So I never had the skills to be a coffee roaster. I still don't. I've never roasted any coffee in my life. I've got a really good team up in the roastery who do that all now. And I used to work with a couple of guys in my earlier days called Johnny and Alex, and we've remained really good friends for years. And we've always just had this pipe dream about opening a roastery because we think we all could bring different things to the cake to make it work. And I think it was at the end of last year, I just said, guys, let's just do this. Otherwise, we're just going to talk about it for another 10 years. So, we made the decision to do it, and we found the premises in October last year, and we opened it in January. We knew that we already had the foundation of a business from what we were already using on our shops. But we were really keen not just to open a coffee roastery, but to open a coffee facility. So we've built a training lab, we've built a showroom, and we've got this like really, really awesome space where we can not just sell coffees to people, but we can educate people, we can bring them up, we can help people. That's kind of what we're all about. I think for us it's help, education, support first, and then everything else comes after. That's our newest project. It's definitely a very different business to coffee shops. So I'm learning a lot, but it's going really well, and we're really, really proud of it, and we're really happy with it at the minute.
Good. And is the lab for people to look at how the coffee is made, or is it, say, coffee connoisseurs that can come in and a bit like you might have a vineyard where they have things on tap that you can try, or is it for more about training your up and coming baristas?
It's a bit of everything, to be honest. Yeah, we now every time we onboard a new member of staff in any of our cafes, we'll send them up there for half a day so they can see what we do and what what they can learn about the coffee that we're roasting, that we're selling to our customers. We provide like training, so like espresso, latte art, all that kind of stuff. But also every time we pick up a new wholesale customer, they can come up with their team. They can see what we do. We can train them. We can go to their site and train them. But we open it to the public once a month. We do like cuppings, which is essentially just coffee tasting. So, but we're kind of like an open door. We always say, look, if you're in the area, you want to come in, you want to try some nice coffees. I think it's been really good for us because we're all coffee fanatics and we're really interested in coffee. But when we're running our coffee shops, A, they're very small, so we're quite limited of what equipment we can have in there, but B, they're very busy, so trying to find the time to spend with people to go through that side of thing is tricky. So the great thing about the roastery is we've got the time and we've got the equipment, and we can talk to people. You can say, we can try this coffee, and it's just a really nice. It's something that I've really wanted to do for a long time, but I guess not being able to because I've been stuck in that commercial side of coffee shops. So yeah, so we've got that now as well, and that's been really, really good to kind of, for me, to step back into that world a bit more, because my world for the last 10 years has been just coffee shops or coffee vans or coffee events, and I guess I kind of maybe forgot about that side a little bit. So I'm kind of re-finding my passion for different coffees and talking to people about different coffees and processes and origins and roasting. So yeah, it's been great.
Which is incredible. I mean, obviously then if you've got the roasters in there, you can have, I suppose, the quality, whereas before perhaps with some of your other wholesalers, you might have had to go by, there might have been a subtle nuance from one week to another, or from one blend to another. You've brought that in-house. And do you think then, by the sounds of it, you're building a brand and almost a story around the cup rather than a product and a coffee cup to sell?
Massively.
How do you make that sort of reinforce that to people that come into your business and work for the brand, do you think?
Yeah, I think, like you say, back before this, it was very much, we employ someone, they come into the shop, this is how we do things, these are the systems, and it kind of just, it stopped at that. And I think what we found now is, especially when we bring new staff in, I think I've always been with people who come and work for us or work for me, I kind of want it to be more than just a cafe job. I always think I want them to leave saying that they've worked for a really great company. And you can see when they come in, you can see the difference now, that when they come into the roastery, they can see that story, and they can see what we're doing and why we're doing it and why we care about it. And it definitely, something goes in their mind that when they go back to work in the cafe, they understand the whole vision a bit more, and it allows them to relay it on to customers who are coming in. So yeah, it's been really, really good in that sense as well. Pretty good.
And if a small independent coffee shop owner is listening to this, what's one simple upgrade they could take from our conversation, or tip that you've had over your year's experience, that their customers could feel straight away?
I think you've got to. So we always talk about like customer experience and think, what is customer experience? What is good customer experience? Because I always think a good customer experience will give you the best chance that customer is going to come back and keep using your business. And I think for a while I asked myself, what is a good customer experience? Is it a customer's coming in and they're seeing all these new fancy things, and they're being spoken language where the barista might think it's interesting, but they might not understand it. And I think customer experience for me is someone comes in, making it as easy as you can for them and as simple, and making them feel relaxed and good. So for us, it's always been about making things really, really fast and making things really simple. And little things really go a long way. Asking a customer how their day's going, saying thank you, saying good morning, all these things. But yeah, it's definitely the customer experience. The good customer experience, I think, is just fast and ease and really high quality product, I think is the keys, I would say.
So like those little touch points, like you say, the hellos, the goodbyes, the thank yous, and then obviously a good product, a strong product at the bottom of it, and probably losing some of the ego.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's whether it's ego or whether it's, what's the word I'm looking for? Whether they don't maybe know what they're doing or what they're projecting. But it's, I think understanding about what people want and delivering it in a sense. that is going to make them feel good and welcome and relax. There's a guy in London called Peter Smith, and he's got two coffee shops now that he runs called Caffeine with a K, and he was one of the first sort of specialty coffee shops in London. I always go there when I'm down. They're really, really great cafes. And he always talks about the 1% in coffee shops, which I think are super important. They're these tiny, tiny little things that customers won't realize, but will make the experience so much better. And I think they're the most important things in coffee shops, is nailing the 1%, because they're the things that are going to make the difference in the end.
And translate. And we've touched on earlier that obviously the UK is quite a hard place at the moment to run hospitality, with the rising costs, probably tighter margin taxes. On the ground, as you are at the moment, as being an operator, how do you try and stay resilient through times like this?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I always say, I've been saying to the guys, we're only at the minute, I think the hospitality sector at the minute, we're one tax rise or one increased costs away from a complete disaster. It's really tough. But I also think on the flip side that it's funny, because as our costs go up, we have to put the costs up for the consumers. And I think the worry is, if we put our costs up anymore, people are going to stop buying and people aren't going to have a business. We're not going to have a business, because we sell a flat white for £3.60. We should really be selling it for £4.50. But if we sell it for £4.50, we're not, people aren't going to buy it. So we have to kind of absorb all this extra cost at the minute. But I do think we are also busier than ever at the minute. So people still love coming into coffee shops and buying coffee and buying pastries and trying new drinks, trying matches, and they seem to be prepared to pay for it still. There's these two sides to it where they're more expensive than ever to run. It's a really scary time that if they get more expensive, you think the walls are going to be so close now that it's not worth running. But I'm very optimistic as well that people are still coming out and buying and using coffee shops. And every time I go in other cafes in Newcastle or further afield, everywhere is still really busy. So that's, I think, really positive as well. So I'm optimistic for the future. I think hopefully at some point, whether it'll happen or not, those in power might take the gas off the pressure on hospitality and maybe drop the VAT a little bit. And I think that the biggest challenge, I think, at the minute for specialty coffee especially is we're in that umbrella of hospitality, but we are asking people to come and work for us, specialty coffee baristas. We're asking them to be really skilled. We're asking them to work on very expensive machinery and how to operate it, understand espresso extraction, latte art. So there's that whole skill and science to it. But we're also asking people to work really fast and really hard and be really nice to customers. Yet we can only afford to pay the minimum wage. And I think that for me at the minute is the really, really hard thing. We're asking a lot of staff, but we're only able to afford the minimum wage because we can't afford to pay them anymore. And I think if there was a bit of a break, I think if there was a leeway in turnover taxes for a business like mine, we would essentially have more money and we could pay people more money, which is what we would definitely do. Because I think the difference between working in like a specialty coffee shop, I guess, to maybe working in like a bar, it doesn't take anything away from people who work in bars, but there's more to, you're not just pulling pints, you're working, as I said, you have to be really good at specialty coffee. You've got to have done it for a long time to understand it and be good at it. So you've invested in it, and you're asking people to come with a really high level of skill, but for shit money basically. And I think that's one of the hardest things at the minute in what we do. I'd like to see change in that. I really would. I think it would really catapult the industry for the better. It would allow businesses to grow. It would allow people to come work in these businesses and actually see it as a career path, as opposed to just a shortfall before they go and do something else.
Yeah, massively.
Yeah.
And I mean, listening to somewhere else, and quite a well-known marketer was talking about if they took away business rates on buildings such as for coffee shops and bars, where they actually act as a community hub. Because even in lockdown, I imagine people were still queuing up, okay, socially distanced and everything else, but still having that moment to speak to somebody else, because somebody might pop out to a coffee shop and actually have no contact with anybody else for the rest of the day. But that could be the
Yeah.
difference of the person going home and not being here tomorrow, or
Yeah.
thinking,
Yeah.
I know that's an extreme
Yeah.
analogy, isn't it?
It is, yeah, but I think you're right in what you're saying is coffee shops are safe places where people can go and just talk to the barista or talk to friends and meet up with friends. It's a different environment to like a bar or a night lifestyle thing, I think, yeah. So I think I'd like to see something like that happen where there's non-alcoholic beverages, there's a bit of leeway on taxation for that and business rates. To be honest, the higher wages and the higher the NI contributions for staff, I think is probably a good thing. I'd like to see people paid more in our industry and the hospitality industry, but that can only happen if there's breaks elsewhere. And there's not really a way around it at the minute. We're kind of stuck. We're trying to just work through it really. And like you say, it's the going back to the discipline thing, which is another thing which is hard on this, especially the people who work for us. We used to say to staff who come and work for us, you can have as many drinks on the house, you can get a bit of lunch. And then we realized how much it was costing us and we've had to cap it. And I feel really bad about it because I want to look after people who come and work for us, but you're just operating on such thin margins that at the minute we just can't afford to do it. So I feel like there's this whole stirring pot at the minute where businesses are really squeezed, and then people who come and work for us feel hard done by, are really squeezed. But there's really the solution is the people up here can make it easier for everyone down here. Whether or not it'll ever happen, I don't know. But that's the way I see it at the minute, anyway.
Cool. So there's a lot of resilience and coming back to that discipline. North Shore today has got a couple of vans, a couple of shops, and a roastery. What does success look like for the rest of this year that isn't just revenue?
Isn't just revenue. I think just continuing on for us, the things that come first for us in a business, which is people and helping people. We just want to continue to help and to educate in any way we can. So if we get a new wholesale customer, we're not just going to give them coffee. We're going to go and do whatever we can to help them with their business or with educating them about coffee or improving their coffee program. And we're still going to be putting out our videos on social media, which I do, which I talk, I guess, no smoke and mirrors about business. Just helping people and trying to do our bit in the industry, really, to make a good impression. That's what's really important for us.
And you've just obviously mentioned the I suppose the struggles that some of the employees may have. If somebody is in hospitality and they're struggling quietly with something, what do you think would be one of the small steps you would recommend they could take to help themselves? You as the owner, if somebody came to you who was quietly struggling in the organization, how would you sort of help them?
So you mean if one of my staff came to me and said, "Hey, I'm struggling."
Yeah.
How would I help them? I would probably just ask them what do you really want to be doing? What do you want to be doing in terms of your work and your life? And they said, "Hey, look, I'm working as a barista, but I'm really struggling financially. I really, really want to open a shop or start a business, but I've no idea how to do it." I would help them. I would say, "Well, I think this is step by step. This is how you can do it." And I would say just be patient. I think that was one of the things I struggled with in the early days. I was probably really impatient, and I'd always look at other businesses and other people and see where they were at and think, I'm not going to be happy until I get to that point. And I think in hindsight, you've got to find a way to enjoy the hard times because it's all part of the journey. So I think if someone came to me and they were in that point, I would say, let's make a plan and let's enjoy this hard time because there's always going to be hard times in life in whatever you do. And I think you've got to find a way to enjoy them and just understand it's all part of the journey and part of the process, really.
Brilliant. And do you have any daily rituals or habits that make you feel 10% better or achieve 10% more in your day?
Yeah, exercise is definitely the key. I've always been sporty with rugby and stuff like that. I've actually stopped stop playing now. And I think again, when you're younger, you don't probably realize the benefits of well-being and exercise. So we've actually got a run club at the roastery now that we go on, so do like a lot of running. And I think exercise, just for me, physically but mentally, is the best thing. So I do that, and I try and stop and think. I think I go through times where things are really, really busy and I've got a lot on, and I always just try and think of the bigger picture, and actually nothing's really that big of an issue. That's really helped alleviate over time what I probably considered as stress. But the exercise definitely is. It's a very cliche thing to say because everyone says it, but it is so good. Exercise, eating well, going on that holiday. I used to struggle with convincing myself I can't go away, and then as soon as I go away, is so much better. So just being a bit kinder to yourself, really, and I guess putting yourself first in situations, because if you don't, you can burn yourself out without realizing. I've definitely done that in the past a couple of times.
Well, there's a lot of pressure, isn't there? I like using the word pressure over stress, but there is a constant when you're a business owner and you employ people, they've got their mortgages or rent or whatever they need to buy with as well, on top of running the business, on top of all the legalities that you need to stay on top of, but also trying to be that visionary. There's a lot of different hats very quickly that you need to swap in between. And sometimes the hat that says self-care just sort of gets left collecting dust in the corner. So like you say, you can exercise, but then there's really exercising. I think there's a difference, like we said at the beginning, there's coffee and then there's coffee.
I think everything that I do or we do, think about the long game with it. Yeah, you've always got to think like that. Is this going to help me in the long game? And I think if you're just going to work 100-hour weeks, you can't do it. It's not going to help anyone in the long run. So you've got to find a way to keep everything sustainable. Yeah, like you say about wearing the different hats and spinning the different plates. Trying to prioritize things or delegate things is really, really helpful as well. Something that took me a long time to be able to do, but as soon as you do it, you're like, oh, this person's actually way better at me than doing this, so I'm just going to let them do it. But especially when you start a business from scratch, you're very emotionally connected to it, and I found it hard for years to allow people to do stuff. And now I've realized there's people who work in our business who are just miles better than me at doing other things. And I try and stick to what I'm good at now. And that's really helped me mentally as well, because I don't have to wake up on a Monday and think, I mean, I do wake up on a Monday and think I've got all these things to do, but I know what my role is here now. And so that's been really good. Yeah. But again, it takes a long time to figure out. I think time's the best thing for everything. You're just never going to know these things in the early days. It takes time to figure it out. So yeah, patience and time, and just working through everything. That is probably the best advice I'd probably try and give to someone
that needs it. And what's next for North Shore? Obviously, you've got the coffee shops, you've got the roastery, but what is next? What's the next couple of years look like for you up in the Northeast?
We're going to open some more stores. So we've got a new store opening within the next couple of months. Just another one in the city centre down by the university. Really, really excited about that. I think, we want to, the rest of the year, we're going to get that open. We're going to tackle the beast that is Christmas. We've got a lot going on for Christmas, and we've got some targets that we want to hit on the roastery side of the business. And then we'll probably sit down again early next year. And I think next year we'll do a couple more stores, and we're just going to keep enjoying what we're doing. We're going to grow organically. We're not going to put pressure on ourselves. And we're just going to really, really keep enjoying what we're doing and keep going. But yeah, a couple more stores will hopefully grow our roastery a bit more, and just kind of keep doing what we're doing in that sense. Yeah.
Just grinding away with the discipline and stuff.
Just grinding. Yeah. Enjoying the everyday, enjoying it every day. I'm very lucky. I really, really love what I do still. And I always think there's so much more we can be doing. So yeah, just going to stay on the journey and see where it takes us.
Toby, so from your first sip in New Zealand to now having coffee shops, opening more, and having a roastery, it's been brilliant to see what you're building up in the Northeast. Thank you for taking the time, the patience, and sharing the proper graft and sharing some lessons that you've learned over the way. But thank you very much for being a guest on our podcast today. And if there are listeners that want to get hold of some of your coffee, where's the best place they can go? Or if they're an independent that want to get some wholesale coffee, where's the best place to go for them?
Yeah, so I mean, if you're in Newcastle, you can go to any of our stores or our vans, and you can buy coffee, or you can come up to the roastery Monday to Friday and just pop in, and we can do that. If you're outside of Newcastle and you want to order some coffee or get in touch, you can just do it via our website, which is northshorecoffeeroasters.co.uk. It's on there.
Fantastic.
Thank you for having me on. It's been really enjoyable. Thank you very much.
No problems. Thank you very much.
Cheers.